Jacob stood by the tent, his gaze fixed on the distant figure of his brother, Esau, disappearing into the wooded hills with his bow and quiver. The scent of fresh earth and livestock hung heavy in the air, but something more weighty filled the camp. That day a divine purpose woven through the tangled threads of a family marked by promise and rivalry. From the moment of their birth, Jacob and Esau were locked in a struggle that seemed to transcend the natural. Even in Rebekah's womb, they had jostled and contended, foreshadowing the destinies that would eventually pull them in opposite directions. Esau, ruddy and strong, grew into a man of the field, a hunter with a taste for wild game and adventure. Jacob, more reserved and contemplative, dwelled among the tents, learning the ways of the household, watching, waiting. Isaac, their aging father, had a preference for Esau, moved by the savory meats his firstborn prepared. But Rebekah, who had received a divine word while pregnant, "The older shall serve the younger," kept her eyes on Jacob. She believed in his calling, in the quiet power within him that would one day carry the covenant promise forward. As Isaac's eyes dimmed and the weight of his years settled upon him, he summoned Esau with a solemn request. "Go out and hunt game for me, and prepare the kind of tasty food I love. Then I will bless you before I die." Esau left quickly, eager to secure the blessing that belonged to the firstborn by tradition and custom. But Rebekah had overheard, and her heart stirred with urgency. She called Jacob to her side, explaining Isaac's plan and proposing her own. "Bring me 2 young goats," she instructed, "so I can prepare a meal your father loves. You shall take it to him and receive the blessing in your brother's place." Jacob hesitated, "But Esau is hairy and I am smooth. What if father touches me? He'll know, and I'll be cursed instead of blessed." "Let any curse fall on me," Rebekah replied without flinching. "Just do as I say." Driven by his mother's insistence and his own longing for the inheritance that extended beyond land or wealthy, spiritual legacy rooted in Abrahamic promise, Jacob obeyed. The goats were prepared, the meal seasoned to Isaac's liking. Rebekah dressed Jacob in Esau's garments and covered his hands and neck with goatskins. Heart-pounding, Jacob entered his father's tent with the food. Isaac's failing sight sharpened his other senses. He listened to the voice, uncertain. "The voice is Jacob's," he murmured, "but the hands are Esau." Still, the scent of the garments, the feel of the skin, the taste of the meal all aligned with what Isaac expected from his eldest. After a moment's pause, he leaned forward and blessed Jacob, pouring out words rich with promise. "May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers." Jacob scarcely had time to leave the tent when Esau returned, his kill freshly prepared. With eagerness he entered his father's presence only to hear the dreadful truth. The blessing had already been given in, irrevocably so. "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing," Isaac told him. A cry tore from Esau's throat, raw and full of anguish. "Bless me too, my father," but the blessing, like an arrow loosed from a bow, could not be recalled. What remained for Esau was a lesser portion, spoken through gritted sorrow. "You will live away from the earth's richness, and serve your brother, but when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from your neck." Esau's grief turned quickly to fury. "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." Rebekah, hearing of Esau's intent, acted swiftly again. She urged Jacob to flee to her brother Laban's house in Haran. "Stay there a while," she told him, "until your brother's fury subsides." Thus began Jacob's exile, a journey that would stretch over decades, shaping his character and deepening his reliance on the God of his fathers. On his way out of Canaan, Jacob stopped for the night, resting his head upon a stone. As he slept, he dreamed of a ladder stretching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending, and the Lord standing above it. "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and Isaac," the voice declared. "I will give you and your descendants the land on which you lie. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go." Jacob awoke with awe. He named the place Bethel, house of God, and vowed that if the Lord would be with him and bring him back safely, he would worship him alone. Though Jacob had obtained the blessing through deception, God did not withdraw his promise. Instead, he chose to mold Jacob through trials, labor, and encounters that would strip away the cunning and reveal the patriarch he was destined to become. Years later, Jacob would return to Canaan, not as the same man who fled. He would wrestle with an angel, reconcile with Esau, and stand as the father of 12 sons, who would become the tribes of Israel. But all of that began on the day he stood in his father's tent, disguised as another, grasping for a blessing that by divine design was already his. The story of Jacob and Esau echoes across generations, a mirror held to the human soul. It reveals how divine purpose can flow through flawed vessels, how blessings come with burdens, and how the hand of God weaves grace even through the knots of deceit. Isaac's blessing, though obtained by trickery, was not without spiritual weight. It passed through Jacob to a nation, to a people set apart. What began in a dim tent with a blind old man and a nervous son became the seedbed for Israel's destiny. The tent fell silent long after Jacob left. Isaac, in his fading strength, had fulfilled his role. Esau, heartbroken and betrayed, bore the weight of rejection. And Rebekah, who had orchestrated it all, watched her beloved son vanish into exile, unsure if she would ever see him again. But in the heavens, the plan continued. The God of Abraham was also the God of Jacob, not because Jacob was perfect, but because grace had chosen him. And that grace would carry him forward, one painful, sacred step at a time.